Hello and welcome to the Happy PharmD podcast. I'm your host, Alex Barker, founder here at the Happy PharmD. And in this episode, you're going to be learning from Julie how she transitioned from her clinical hospital role and into an MSL role. No experience, no residency, technically, and how she went about it, what challenges she was presented with. And in fact, she didn't even really know if she wanted to be an MSL, but you'll learn how she transitioned from not being clear about what she wanted to getting clearer, and how in our program with a coach who isn't an MSL, she became one. And so with that, let's jump in. Hey, Julie.
Hi.
So how does it feel? You are officially an MSL.
Yes, it feels really great. I mean, I don't know what it really feels like because I haven't started yet, but I'm really pumped that I was able to accomplish getting this role.
But it's been a journey to get there.
Definitely.
Before you accepted this position, what was your background like? Like, what were you doing previously, and how did that journey go?
So I graduated pharmacy school and did not do residency, but my fourth year of rotations were all in the hospital, and I was able to impress enough people to get a job as an inpatient pharmacist. And from there, I went pretty much right into inpatient pediatrics. So I went into this specialty role with no training, and the training on the job was not really there either. So I had no residency training. And so this was a very self-led process. And it was great, really. I mean, to be able to work with a specialized population and without residency, I was very lucky. I think part of it was at the time, nobody wanted to do pediatrics. So I was able to do NICU. I did pediatric ICU as well. So I was able to even do critical care in a specialized population without residency training. That was great. I eventually ended up on general pediatrics, which I didn't want to do at first. I was really into running to the code. But then I ended up having twins and a little PTSD from them being NICU babies. So I accepted this position into general pediatrics because they needed someone who had enough experience to train the residents. So I kind of felt like I had to do it for the team because no one else could do it. But that ended up to be a great move. And from there, I was able to, really, I've done every therapeutic area that you could do. So I was very much a generalist, very much a jack of all trades as a pharmacist, but specifically pediatrics. So when you are applying for an MSL job, everybody tells you you're supposed to look specialized in the therapeutic area. I had various therapeutic areas I could probably muscle through that. There were various projects I did that I could show that I have really took a dive in deep into that therapeutic area. So that was all great. But then 11 years later, I was ready to do something different and just hospital burnout. So, and also just wanting a better fit for my family. So all of those things are why I wanted to look for another job. And I didn't really do anything as far as searching for a new position of any kind until I reached out to the Happy PharmD.
Interesting. So, sometimes people come to us after looking for years. What was like the trigger for you that said, okay, I need to do something else? Was it your family? Was it an event? Or was it just kind of like a gradual realization of, I don't think this environment's for me?
There were a few things. There was an unfortunate incident at work that bothered me about the way it was handled. I won't go into that. So that would like gave me a sour taste. That was and it was a big sour taste. And then I was at a dentist office. My kid was getting some dental work done, and I'm waiting in the lobby, and this huge man comes and sits next to me. He was like, he must have been like 6'5", and he was this beautiful man, and he sits next to me and he just starts talking to me, and he said, and he's just very friendly, and he's in the very same position I am with his child. And so his child goes back, and so now we're chatting, and he asks me what I do, and I tell him I'm an inpatient pharmacist, and he says, how long have you been doing that? So I told him, oh, I've been doing it for 10 years now. And he says, yeah, that's about how long? I'm like, that's about how long what? That's about how long it takes for people to realize that they should be in industry instead. I'm like, okay, tell me more. So he was a sales rep. He did work with some oncology product. And so just talking to him more about, well, I don't think that's a great thing for me because I want to be the primary caregiver at home. And I know that involves a lot of travel. And he says, so he's telling me about sales, and he's telling me about the MSL job. And I'm worried that I wouldn't make the same amount of money. And he tells me that's not true. And then I explain, what about the travel? And he explains to me that most of his travel, he leaves in the morning and he's back home in time for dinner. So I thought, oh, maybe I should look into that. Because of the event that made me sour, I was pretty depressed at this time, and I wasn't really capable of doing a whole lot. Meanwhile, I didn't know this, but a really close friend of mine that I worked with had started the process to look towards a career change as an MSL. So he was an inpatient pediatric pharmacist with me, and then he hired a coach, and he landed a position really quickly. I want to say it took him 3 months. So once he told me about that, I was like, oh, I've been thinking about that too. And then seeing him go through the process so closely to me showed me that this is actually possible. So then I thought, okay, well, I'm going to think about this some more. And then he told me more about the travel. And then a lot of it was, well, I know I want to leave the hospital, but I don't know if this is really what I want to do. I don't know everything that there is to do. So that was why I reached out to the Happy PharmD. I liked that you're all pharmacists and that I could explore various paths, not just an MSL, because I still wasn't convinced about this travel component. That still really concerned me.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the space that you're in is really common for a lot of people. Right now, pharma is all the trend, and the MSL role is being marketed very well as like the ideal position for pharmacists. But there's a lot of other positions, but people don't even know what those are or what it's like or how to get into them, right?
And then the titles of those roles seem very different by company. So it's hard to know what those roles really are and how to find them and how to market yourself for them, because they to me seem less well defined than the MSL role.
Yeah, it's very true, right? You hear about one role like drug safety associate and you wonder, okay, is this medical affairs? Is this pharmacovigilance? Is it some other department as a liaison to some other department? It is unlike most healthcare roles where there's a blending and a mixing of responsibilities, which makes it both volatile and easy to transition within roles, right? You learn things, you get into something else. So you're open to things, but you're not knowing like what exactly you want to get into.
Right.
When do you remember about when you started working with us?
I think I reached out in March, and then I committed at the end of March.
Okay.
So starting really in April.
Okay. So you started in April and you just were offered this position in, was it October or November?
October.
Okay. Congratulations. That's very fast to go from, I don't know what I want to do to getting an MSL role.
Yeah.
Because that time to like figure out what's out there and what do I even want sometimes it takes people months to go through because there's just so many options.
The more I found out about the MSL role, the more I really liked it. The big hang up is wanting this to be the right move for my family and the travel. I was really hung up on that. And the only way to get through it was to hear a lot of people tell me to just swallow it. Just swallow it and grit your teeth and don't worry about that right now. But what they said was good about the role were things that I was realizing, like during this whole process of the coaching system and all the modules, it's just this forced, introspective, reflective, over 11 years of work. And just thinking about it more. And as I was going through this, I noticed some changes in the way that I was working, the way that I was talking to other people, that really clarified that this is what I should be doing.
In what ways?
So I was precepting. I was precepting 3 people at the same time. I had a PGY2 in pediatrics, and I had 2 PGY1s, and I had them all at the same time. And what I realized was that I am good at talking to people. I am really good with exchanging ideas with my providers. I'm good at presenting data, and I'm good at giving them the information and the tools that they need to make the decision. So I can give them pros and cons about various options that we have. I can tell them what we have and what we don't have, or how to get what we don't have maybe somewhere else, and presenting all of those options and just empowering them with the information to make the decision. And also how I didn't know this, but apparently I'm pretty good at dancing around some ugly conversations. And I didn't appreciate that until I was precepting these 3 people at the same time. And at this point, I was done with all the modules, and I was starting to look for positions. And I was practicing some of the interview work. And so during this process, this was actually around in July. So this is when the brand new baby doctors come out. And I was noticing a lack of skills in various ways. So this was not the group of people I was used to working with. They weren't as strong with their foundational knowledge as I was used to working with. And then there was a lot of social awkwardnesses that I wasn't used to seeing. So I think a lot of this was like COVID related, that the COVID graduates had come out. And so for example, I would have a brand new medical resident come to my desk and kind of like have this word vomit of what she needed for some patient. She didn't identify herself. She didn't identify her patient. I had no idea who this person was, what team they were. I didn't know who the patient was. And, I'm on general pediatrics. I could have 60 patients that day. Like there's no way I know what she's talking about. So I had my 3 residents with me, and I stopped and I said, "Hi, my name is Julie. What's your name?" And then she stopped. I'm like, "Okay, great. What team do you work for? What patient are we talking about? Can you tell me a little bit more about this patient? Let me pull up their medical record." So I stopped this person and went all the way back. And then I led the conversation. And then this person walks away, and I turned to my residents, and they were like, "Wow, that was really cool." And I thought, "Oh, okay, well, I guess I'm good at these kind of interactions." So from that point on, I noticed my residents having lots of awkward moments in figuring out what their role was on the team. So I was able to coach them on, this is how you get heard. This is how you present your ideas in a way so that you are heard. And I can tell from these interactions I've had from your team that they need you to lead them more in this regard. So I was able to really guide them to be more effective. I did not need to guide my pharmacy residents in their foundational knowledge. They knew how to research whatever they need. I mean, this is pediatrics, so they have no background, but they were really good at using their resources. So I just gave them a little guidance on that. But mostly what I guided them on was how to interact with the team and how to get things done. And over the course of the month, there were a few tense moments that they saw me in, which played out really well and made for some really great interview stories.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, a lot of my teaching was about social interactions and how to just approach how to step into your role, and be heard. So all of that kind of made me feel better about, yes, I want to go speak to people in person. I do want to establish rapport with providers in a different way. And I think I can do that. I think I can do this effectively.
It's often missed on people that what they're good at is right in front of them. But we do it sometimes so naturally that we don't see it ourselves. And it's because it's our own skin. Like fish in water, you don't think about what you're doing or how you're doing it. You just do it.
Right.
What was it perhaps about the coaching process that was able to kind of highlight these key moments for you?
So the standout assessment, it told me that my number one role was influencer, which I did not believe at all. I didn't believe that at all. And then the number two was connector. And just kind of sitting with that and going through the process of all the modules and just thinking all of it through, I came to accept myself as the influencer. I thought I need to just go with this. This doesn't feel right, but I'm invested in this program. I'm just going to go with it. Eventually that I realized that I was an influencer. So just trying to accept it and then going through some tough interactions with providers, I realized that I am an influencer. But if you go back 11 years to where I was as a brand new baby pharmacist, I would say the most intimidating part of the job was trying to go to these providers and speak to them with zero experience and zero training. So this was definitely not something that felt natural to me 11 years ago. But now realizing I'm at the top of my game. And that was really nice. Like just the whole process. And I mean, to 11 years later to say, I am leaving this job at the top of my game. I can really do this. I really did this well. And to be able to stop and appreciate that. I mean, I didn't appreciate that last year. So it's nice to reflect on that and feel really good about that.
Yeah, as you should. You know, some people feel like they're so ready to escape their current situation that they don't really appreciate all the things and the work experiences that have led them to this moment. Even if it's colored with a bad taste in your mouth about management, coworkers, patients, whatever the situation is, you can use these things to be transferable skills, right? You've never been an MSL, right? You're under oath, never, right?
Never.
But you're able to use all of that and sell yourself in this position. And for a little bit of context for the listener, we use a lot of different assessments in our program for our coaches to help guide people to see like what makes you naturally you. And you're not the first person to say, you know, I took this assessment and I didn't believe the results. Like, it's really funny. I'm assuming then you never saw yourself as an influencer.
No, but I should have because when, you know, before this, I was a ballet dancer. And then I was, I had this position called ballet mistress, which means It's like the coach of the company.
Okay.
Okay. So I was really responsible for training, technical training, as well as like execution of the artistic vision. And so I mean, really, I led a large group of dancers, and I definitely was influential. So I mean, I really, like, I'm kind of kicking myself that I didn't see that, at least in another setting. And if I had recognized that sooner, I probably would have been more effective in my job as a pharmacist earlier on.
Hmm.
A lot of imposter syndrome,
How so?
just because, because I think a lot of it was there was no training. And then
Hmm.
the work culture was fairly negative and very much like, you don't know what you're doing. I mean, when I first started, it's not like that now. It's a lot more cooperative. It's a much better team. The leadership is much better than it was 11 years ago. And it's much more uplifting. And thank goodness, because I mean, we all need some grace, especially starting out.
Yeah, grace would be nice in the healthcare system, but patients don't have it for the system.
Mm,
Healthcare practitioners don't have it for the system, and the system doesn't have it for everyone else.
no.
That's another subject, though, for another day. So the career journey is meant to be reiterative. It's meant to be built upon and broken down. And that's really hard for pharmacists. You mentioned imposter syndrome, and I see it baked into our profession, from the education to the execution.
Mhm.
And one of the things that comes to mind for why this is so hard for people is that when you have imposter syndrome and perfectionism is a part of that, it's kind of the idea of things needing to be right or perfect is influencing your career search and your career journey, right? It's telling you got to be spot on. You have to have the perfect resume and the perfect cover letter, and you need to know everything about the job before you
Yeah.
step in, which
Mhm.
is ridiculous.
It is
Um,
ridiculous.
you know, you said you have kids. That's kind of like having a child and then telling it, okay, now you need to do everything right from here on out.
Mhm.
Welcome to the world. And if you make a mistake, you're going to pay for it dearly. you know,
Mhm.
like that's just not how life works.
Right.
Was your perfectionism, your tendencies, your habits, whatever you want to call it, did that? It sounds like it slowed you down a little bit in your journey.
So I don't think of myself as a perfectionist because I am not the most detail-oriented pharmacist. Um, so that kind of makes me feel like I'm not a perfectionist, but on certain things, I do totally kick myself for not nailing perfectly.
Hmm.
More so like my delivery to a provider and being able to um, present my ideas. I would say in that sense, maybe I'm a perfectionist on that end, but the biggest hangup was really the travel component to the job, and
Hmm.
feeling like I had to know all the answers about that before really trying to land a role. And it took, and so really the only cure to that was hearing it over and over again from different MSLs. So I actually sought out MSLs that were moms. And when I found one, I asked them to introduce me to another MSL that was a mom, or like someone who's just more family oriented. So it just took some repetition to believe it. And truthfully, I don't know it in action yet. And I think it's going to be more travel than I want to do, but the work that you do when you're traveling is the work that I want to do. And coming to grips with that also helped me decide I need to give this a try.
Yeah, and you can always laterally move to a new job, a new role, maybe one with more different benefits.
Right.
You know, as a part of the coach process, one of the number one things we recommend people do right away, as soon as they're ready, is to start networking, start connecting with people. And it sounds like that is what helped give you the confirmation you needed to like overcome the I need to know everything and imposter syndrome that could have been there. And it sounds also like you kind of removed, I was just talking to a pharmacist actually this morning with the question of like, I got a new job. It's not what I wanted. And I don't know what's out there. And I remember I started to like, okay, well, the role you're doing now is really similar to this and this and this. And immediately what came up from her was a lot of that same kind of I wouldn't call it negativity. I think there's a better word for it that I don't have at the moment. But just like saying, well, I can't do that because of this, or I can't do that because I don't think it's interesting, or this doesn't, phase me at all. And I think it's really easy to be very critical of this whole process that every pharmacist goes on that it's like, have you ever seen the movie Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy?
A long time ago.
There's this famous scene in the book and in the movie where they land on a planet, and as soon as they have an idea, they get hit in the face with a sign, right? From that comes out from the ground. And anytime someone has a new thought, whack, whack, whack. And I think that's what is happening to many pharmacists is as soon as a new idea comes or a hope or an aspiration or a goal, whack, I can't do that. It has this. And I'm so glad that you were able to like not get hit in the face anymore with these ideas because yes, you have travel in your MSL role, but it's a hybrid role where it's remote and going to locations.
Right.
Was that the position? Was it that way when you applied for the job, or was that something you were able to negotiate?
No, so that's the typical role of an MSL is to work from home and then travel to meet providers in person, and then also to go to these annual conferences. And thinking about other roles in industry sounded kind of awful to me. Like pharmacovigilance sounded like not a good fit for me. And any of those positions that were 100% work from home sounded not good to me. Truthfully, I'm wondering how I'll do working from home most of the time.
Sure.
But I mean, that was the goal, was to drop my kids off at school and pick them up from school and to be home and be with them. And so I'm really looking forward to that. And I'm really looking forward to the fact that that's not all it is, that I am going to physically get out and be with people. And, when you're a pharmacist working in a hospital, you're around people all the time. I mean, you are moving through space, talking to people, and people coming and approaching you and walking on rounds and then going to the farm. Like, there's a lot of movement and there's a lot of interaction while you're moving. I'm not like sitting at a desk just talking on the phone, and just kind of thinking about that. I like that aspect of my job. I don't want to lose all of that. Made it also easier to swallow this idea of travel. When I went on my job interview was in person. They flew me out, which was great because it was like a little trial for my husband and the kids.
Yeah.
And it went so well for them that it was just like further confirming that this was good. And then having those interactions in person. So I had some of those interactions were in person and some of them were in Zoom. But to have that in-person meeting was huge, was like hugely confirming to me, and also felt really great that the company had invested in their process that way.
Yeah. And I know that, you mentioned our modules, and we talk a lot about interview skills and applications and how to prepare for those. What was it like working with your coach in the program?
My coach was also named Julie, and she was great. And I'll
Yeah.
tell you, I mean, the number one thing that I needed from her was for her, like you said, networking is huge. And what I really needed most and first was confirmation that you should reach out to people that you don't know, that you should just do it, that you should go on LinkedIn and find people that are interesting and reach out to them and talk to them. And without having done that, I wouldn't have been able to really commit to looking for an MSL role. So that was huge. And then there were other things. There were other things that she really pushed me on that I had a hard time believing at first. And and so the first thing was reaching out to people that you don't know. And that was great because I was able to speak to a lot of MSLs and decide, okay, I really do want to do this. I'm really going to go for this. And I was able to get an internal referral, which she insisted that I really don't apply blindly for jobs, that I get an internal referral, and I was able to get one. That was hard in the sense that I live in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and to get an MSL job from Albuquerque, New Mexico, it's an additional hurdle. It really is. They don't want you from here. I'll just be honest. They want you from the biggest part of their territory. Right. They want you from the most important part. I am going to cover Southern California, and I somehow landed this job competing out people from Southern California. So this was something that when I spoke to MSLs, they also said, "Are you sure you're not willing to relocate?" And so that was painful. But like the answer was no. I have aging parents. If I can't do this from Albuquerque, I'm going to have to find something else. That's just where I'm at right now. But to be able to do that was huge. But so Julie insisted that I don't apply for every job that included New Mexico as a territory, but there were so few jobs that I felt compelled to at least try. And so what I would do is I would see the opportunity, and then I would try really hard to find a way to network into that company. But by then it's too late, really. Like the amount of time that you have from the job posting, to, because people already know about the job before it's posted, obviously. Right. So you have to be fast, and then to try to network in at that, it never worked. It never worked. So I think I only applied for 2 jobs, actually.
It's not surprising to me. I mean,
but she was right. She was right. And then, right. But everything aligned magically. Like really, it was quite magical the way it aligned. So I networked with this wonderful person at the company that I'm going to work for. She was so sweet to me. We Zoomed. She got to know a little bit about my work background, and then it was 2 months later that my friend said, "Hey, did you see this position?" And I said, "Not yet." And I looked at it and thought, okay, now I'm going to reach back out to this MSL that I had a great interaction with and see if she's willing to give me an internal referral. And if she's not, I'm going to talk her into it. I am going to talk her into it. I'm going to tell her why this is a good fit until she believes me. But I didn't have to, because we already got to know each other. So she was willing to do that. So Julie was right that you should network your butt off. Like that is the number one most important thing to do first, is network your butt off, to help you decide what you want to do, to make those connections, and to get to know people, and for people to get to know you so that they're willing to advocate for you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I mean, it's so cool to hear the story. And I say it in some version or another a lot on LinkedIn when I talk with people that like the lucky is just those who are prepared, right? And
Yes.
you put in the work. You did exactly what the program demands. You did all of the good things. And you can call it serendipity or luck, but really you're just being proactive with your career.
Mhm.
And you got exactly what you were hoping for and
I
wanted.
think there's an element of the stars aligning though. And it's
Oh, sure.
funny because and all the MSLs said that the time has to be just right because you can apply for that job. You can be the perfect fit for that job. And then right before they hire you, after they interview you and like you, they close the position because they've just restructured the whole team.
Right. There, I mean, obviously, there's so many other factors, right,
Mhm.
outside of the
Definitely.
norm of what to be expected. And pharma is even more volatile than typical healthcare jobs.
Mhm.
You don't hear too many positions that like in healthcare practitioner roles, right, where they're
Right.
like, oh, the job disappeared. That's pretty rare.
Mhm.
Not so in pharma. Um, but when I think about everything that you did that led up to this moment, it
Mhm.
was like, yep, not surprised it happened this way. Um, so the role is remote. The role has travel with it. The
Mhm.
role is doing all of your identified strengths, your
Mhm.
zone of genius, as I like to talk about in the program. You um, you're getting into a completely new industry, right?
Mhm.
You're positioning well yourself into a career. I have to assume, although I could be wrong, that the base salary is probably higher than your previous job, and then there's also bonuses included with it.
Yes.
That okay? That's an assumption. Sounds like it's true. Congratulations. Um, you are in a position where like world's your oyster, and I don't sell the MSL role to a lot of people because you really have to be well prepared to get into that role. You didn't have a residency, which was obviously a huge ding against your application, but you made it work with everything that you've done in your career to this point. And what I love about your story most is your gumption to sell yourself, this confidence which sometimes comes rarely to pharmacists,
Mhm.
to be like, yeah, I've got this and I want the job and I'm one of the best candidates for the job.
Your program made it clear to me that I had to get to that point. That
Yeah.
I had to get ready. I really needed to sell myself and that there was no way around it. And then I was just noticing more I'm not big on Instagram, but recently at around that time, my cousin was sending me links to different people on Instagram. And um, what was interesting to me was the ability of these people to sell themselves. And so that became motivating to me to see, oh, look at how this person is presenting themselves. And look at how they continue to do that over a period of time. And just seeing like, oh, wow, I need to get better at that.
Mhm.
I need to embrace that. I need to really just do that.
It's a wonderful lesson to learn. And now you're never going to not have that.
Right.
You
Right.
may not be practicing it actively as much as you have been,
Right.
in the last couple of months, but
Right.
you know exactly how it's like learning a bike. You know how to do it.
Right.
And the other cool thing too is that you're going to be traveling and meeting a lot of people who have probably opportunities that you would have never known about had you not
Right.
travel, meet them, make connections. I mean, it's really flexing that connector muscle that you identified in the
Mm-hmm.
program. And now you just get to connect people.
Mm-hmm.
You're off to the races.
Yes. Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So, part of this, all of this work, this was also really interesting to me was so my friend who had left the hospital and gotten an MSL job very quickly, he would check in with me. How am I doing? What am I doing? And, I don't know. I'm just talking to people. I'm reaching out to people. I'm talking to people. I'm getting more information on what it's really like. I'm just getting more perspectives. I'm gathering information. Like I wasn't applying for jobs. I'm not
Yeah.
applying. I'm thinking about interviews. I'm revamping my CV. I'm doing all the things, but not actually actively applying yet. And but mostly I'm just talking to people. And he told me, well, you're already doing the job. That's what an MSL does, is you have to reach out to people that you don't know and comfortably speak to them. So you're already doing the work. So just embrace that, because this is your job training. And that was true. And I held on to that. And then I was asked a question in the interview: what skills are you going to leverage as a new MSL with no experience? And so, because he had already put this idea in my head, I said, well, the first thing I'm going to do is use my network to grow my network. And I think that was the right answer, because it showed that my head was in the right space, that this job is about connecting with people, and this job is about communicating and having good relationships with people. So I was able to speak to all of that.
If there is anything that you could tell your younger self that was just about to go on the journey towards getting this MSL role, what do you wish you could go back in time and say to her?
Just relax and trust it. I wish I had trusted earlier, but I did trust it. But it's hard because, you know, a lot of your clients are coming in from a negative place. You know, I had that bad situation at work that had soured me, on top of all of the hospital burnout that I was already experiencing. So to come in from this negative place where I felt a little beaten down and my confidence had taken a hit, and then to trust these ideas of, you know, go talk to people you don't know. And like, when you don't feel confident in who you are and the work you've been doing, that was really hard. So to just, that was the biggest hurdle, to get over that. So I would have liked to have embraced it and been more positive about it from the beginning.
What could we have done to help you make that transition faster?
Nothing. I needed Julie to tell me that 3 times, and she told me that 3 times. Yeah. And it was the same same process with the cover letter. She really pushed me that I needed to have this compelling story. And I'm like, I don't have a compelling story. And I really did not want to use a patient story. I have a lot of patient stories that I could use, and it didn't feel good to me to use a patient story. It just felt wrong to talk about someone's bad situation and for my own gain, is what it felt like. And I don't know, I just felt uncomfortable about it. And I was, you know, I didn't really, you know, the whole imposter syndrome and not being able to recognize some really great things that I had done in my career. And, you know, just having this casual conversation with Julie, like, oh, so yeah, this work I did on status epilepticus, we did this protocol and it was a big project, and I'm really proud of that. But in further conversations, I thought to tell her, oh yeah, I was a PRN hospital pharmacist at this regional hospital, you know, 60 miles away. And while I was there, they were using the protocol I wrote at the other institution. And then, oh yeah, we just met with the ER team, and the ER team told me that EMS services around the state are using this protocol that I wrote. And I didn't think of that as like I did not think that was a compelling story. And then Julie's like, that's your story.
Yeah. You know, it's this kind of magic that makes it hard to tell people like what a coach actually does.
Right. But now I'm like, how clueless was I? Like, those were great things. So then I ended up with this cover letter all about status epilepticus. and I'm applying for this job in neurology, and now I look like a specialist, which was really great.
Interesting how that
Yeah,
worked
so
out.
that lined up really well.
You know, you can't make a change on your face unless you have a mirror, right? Like, I've never done it, save outside of a play that I was in earlier in my life, but I've never put really a lot of makeup on my face. But if I did, I'd want a mirror.
Well, yeah,
That way I could see, what the heck am I doing?
right.
And I think that's really what the power of a coach is, to look at you, see what your superpowers are, and help guide you to make better decisions for your career. If you're not going to put makeup on without a mirror, then like if you really want to sell yourself into something that's challenging, competitive role like an MSL, it's great to have a coach to be able to pinpoint what are the things that you're doing, because otherwise you may not even see where your greatness lies. I'm really thrilled, honestly, to hear this story. Like, uh, just thinking out loud, the headline is something like, "No residency, no problem."
Well,
You put in a lot of work, obviously, in the clinical setting, though, right, to
I
get
did.
that kind of background.
I did, and I was told by various MSLs, you will not get a position without clinical experience. The only way,
Yeah.
the other thing they said was, if your clinical experience is not strong, then you should go into sales first.
Right, and a lot of people don't wanna hear that.
They don't want to hear
And it's the timing and the trends, it's so odd. Pharma is all about sales, and pharmacists wanna get into it en masse, but as soon as you start mentioning sales, they go, "Ooh, I don't want it."
that.
But, I mean, you're gonna be doing it as an MSL. You're gonna be
Mhm.
actively selling things, but the way I try to change people's mindsets about sales is all you're really doing is sharing.
Right.
That's it. You're not forcing anyone to make a decision, especially in pharmaceutical sales. You're just sharing what you're doing. And the honest truth is that if you're good at sharing things, which often pharmacists are, um, you can make a lot more money in sales than you can in pharmacy over the long term, not starting
Absolutely.
off.
And definitely the earning potential would be greater in sales than as an MSL. That's true.
Yeah, but the very idea of sales to pharmacists, they get the vomitous look upon their face, and I think it's because they've interacted with people who were bad at sales, as we all have, right?
Mhm.
Um, but anyways, not to deviate too much, I think your story is hopefully encouraging to those that have clinical backgrounds that maybe want to get into this. Congratulations on taking some brave and bold moves, shifting your mindset out of, well, this isn't going to work, to, I can make it happen and I'm a great candidate.
Mhm.
Way to go.
Thanks. There's a
Um,
there's a couple other things that I thought were really helpful in the interview process.
yeah, please share.
The first thing was the tell me about yourself, and I had done that before in interviews and felt prepared. But what's something that you said in the module was, tell something personal about yourself that's interesting or helps you connect with the people interviewing you. So if you research the people that you're interviewing with, and if there's something commonality, try to share that, or try to share something interesting about yourself. And I had asked a couple people about this. I said, I'm thinking about saying that I used to be a professional ballet dancer. And the people I spoke to were like, oh, if you do that, you better make that brief. And I think I actually took like 4 sentences to talk about it,
Mhm.
because I related it to how I approach things and how that's affected my whole work life.
Yeah.
in pharmacy and outside of pharmacy. And that it went over really well. And that was hard to do because it made me feel like I was opening up a vulnerable spot to say that. But it definitely made me interesting, and I was able to relate that to the job, to me as a person, as someone who works, and that I think went really well. There was a LinkedIn post that I saw that swayed me to do this because I was leaning towards not doing it. And I saw this post, and it was about the best questions to ask a candidate. So, what are the best questions to ask people applying for a job? And one of them was, tell me something about yourself that I will not see on your CV that makes you a good fit for this job or for this, for this role. And I thought, oh, that's kind of telling, that's kind of what I'm going to do.
Mm.
And so, and that worked really well. I got more interview questions about that.
Yeah, of course you did.
Yeah.
I remember, in fact, it may be it's in our current program, but I remember interviewing, I think he was a residency manager, and he told me about this time where the only reason why he interviewed one candidate who got the position was because she mentioned that she had been in the college band for the entirety of her college career. And that's what he did as well. And like, that's all that was on the cover letter, you
Uh-huh.
know. The fact that you're a human being is not something to hide from. After all, you're going to be talking to humans.
Right. Right. Exactly.
And if you come across as this weird, robotic, clinically obsessed person, they're not going to connect with you.
Right.
My favorite thing is patient care. Give me a break. No one talks like that. But
Right.
I've done enough mock interviews to hear it over and over again. I'm a pharmacist, and my favorite thing is, providing safe medical care. No, it's not. Shut up.
Right. Mhm.
What else was helpful about the interview process?
Okay, so the final dose. The final dose was big deal. And so I was, it was a little uncomfortable. It was a little uncomfortable. So
Do you mind if I give some context to listeners?
please, yeah.
So one of our modules talks about the final dose, which very few people actually tell me that they do this. So I'm so glad that you're speaking up and now about it. But the idea here is that at the very end of the interview, after you've given your questions and you hopefully have had a good back and forth with your interviewers, you want to tell them why you are a great candidate. You want to tell them, ideally, that you want the job and why you want it. And the reason why you want to do that is because no one does it. It leaves the interview in the hands of your control and tells them clearly and ideally succinctly why you believe yourself to be a top candidate for the position. Most people do not do this. Very few people leave the interview with like any kind of confidence that it went well. It's usually them asking you, well, do you have any more questions? And then the person goes, nope. Okay, great. Well, we'll get back to you. And that's it. So obviously this is the first time you've probably heard about that strategy when you learned about it in the program. Did you
Actually,
also
someone told me about this a long, long time ago.
Oh, okay.
And not exactly that, not exactly like that. He said at the end of the interview, you ask for the job. So a similar.
Did you also feel like I'm not doing that?
It was, well, no, the final dose was better advice because it was an opportunity to reiterate main points about myself, to connect them to the job, not just asking for the job. So, so I had some similar advice to that before. And when at the time, I was not capable of doing that. I did not have it in me to ever ask for the job because I didn't feel like I deserved it. So, but the final dose was much better advice because it was about fit yourself to the position, fit yourself to the company, and maybe reiterate something that you want to leave them with. So that really was great. When I did it though, it was a little bit awkward. So my first interview was over Zoom, and I did the final dose. And as I was doing that, I got a little chuckle. My interviewer had like a little chuckle, and I wasn't sure, like, is he chuckling because nobody does this? Is he laughing at me, or is he laughing because this is unexpected? And but then I asked, what's the next step, and what can I do to make sure that I get this job, or something like that, is how I kind of finished it. And then he said, no, this was a really great exchange. This was a great interview. Thank you so much for your time, and we'll be in touch. So I got a positive response, not actual real feedback, but I got a positive response after. But at the time, he kind of chuckled, and I thought, oh man, how do I continue through this chuckle? It just felt weird, but I'm glad I did it. And then further on in the interview process, I had 5 other interviews, and I did it with all of them.
Wow.
And I got compliments on it. I got 2 people said, wow, that's a great way to end an interview. And but also specifically going into an MSL role and going into a position where travel is the expectation, to reiterate, I want this job, you should give me this job. They kind of need that extra to take you from having never done that kind of work before to doing it. They want that extra commitment. And in fact, I gave another final dose. Okay. So after all the interview, I was in touch with the recruiter. The recruiter says, the feedback is very positive. You're going to hear from us soon. Okay, great. And then the next day he says, we're about 90% on this. And I said to him, I want to talk about this 10% right now. We're going to squash the 10%. I want you to tell the hiring manager that if this 10% is about my willingness to travel and my commitment to making this life change, I want there to be no questions about this. I have the support I need at home. And that was demonstrated during the interview process because I came out to California to meet people. My husband nailed it at home, and that made me that helped me be ready to commit to doing all the travel that this is going to entail. So he did. He went back and he told the hiring manager, and then I got the offer soon after that.
That's all they needed. In sales, which is what an interview really is you're selling yourself.
Yes.
You want to make sure you address all objections. Why shouldn't we hire you?
Yes.
You're inexperienced. You've never done this before. You live far away. All of those things, why not address them, right? Call them out before that it even becomes a question in their minds. No need to create doubt for them. I know that you haven't started the job yet. We kind of interviewed a little bit early on, but it sounds like this job is making a really big change for you in your life, your family.
Yes. I'm excited for it. So, last year I was able to drop my kids off and pick them up from school with the help of before and after care. And this year we weren't able to secure before and after care. So this, I ended up getting some help from my parents with the kids, and I have someone that I hired to help as well. And my kids had been sad about this, that mommy's not picking them up. And now it's going to be even better because I'm going to drop them off without before care, and I'm going to pick them up without after care. And they are going to be with mommy so much more. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited that I can, make dinner for my family. And also that everyone that I spoke to said, this is the way they describe it. When you're home, you're really home. And when you're not, you're not. And so not only are you home to do all the things, but you're more present. And that's what I'm really looking forward to is to actually mentally, emotionally be really home with my kids and not so stressed out about everything that happened at work. And did I make the right decisions? Did I do this the right way? And, and all of that. So yes, this is a big change for my family.
Congrats, Julie. I don't think I have any more questions. This was an awesome interview.
Great. Thank you.
If you're ready to get started in your career process, it's time. What are you waiting for? It's time to talk to us. We would absolutely love to help you get clear about not just what jobs are out there, but where you fit best in the pharmacy market. Maybe it isn't pharmacy either. I don't know. 95% of the people we work with usually stay, but sometimes they move on. But whatever your career path is, it needs to be matched to what you're great at, your skills, and learning how to lean into those skills as a part of your career development. You see, the thing about careers is that it's all just about having fun, leaning into your strengths and your passions, and practicing them as a way of setting yourself up for success in the next job that you get. We would love to do that. But to get started, all you have to do is schedule a time to talk with us. In that call, we'll do a little bit of assessment, maybe provide a little bit of guidance as some next steps in getting you clear about what you need to do. And if it's a great fit, we would love to talk to you about how we can help you more. To do that, there's a link somewhere. We'll put it somewhere. You can click it. And that would be the first step into helping you get into a job that you love, just like Julie. Thanks for watching this episode of our podcast. And until we see you in the next one, take care.